Hello and welcome back to Powering Up Future-Proofing the Philippine Energy Mix, a three-part roundtable discussion series in partnership with Aboitiz Power. I'm Ruthie Owen, your moderator, and we're about to dive into the second episode entitled The Headwinds and Tailwinds of Offshore Wind. Here we'll talk about wind power along with solar and see how their trajectories can help boost RE adoption. Joining me again today is our panel of experts. First, we have Undersecretary Mylene Capongcol of the Department of Energy. Welcome again, Yusek.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning.
And second, we have Professor Wally Del Mundo, an Associate Dean of the College of Engineering at the University of the Philippines, Diliman. Welcome back, Prof.
Hi.
So last but not the least, we have Fortunato Atoy Lainez, President and CEO of the National Transmission Corporation. Welcome, President Atoy.
Thank you and good morning.
So let's get into it. Earlier, we discussed the increase in pie share of solar energy and onshore wind and how it was boosted by GEA-4. In the upcoming GEA-5, the focus is on offshore wind. But there are observers that are hesitant to adopt this, with other countries seemingly abandoning offshore wind. What are the pros and cons of offshore wind in the Philippines? Let's break it down. So, Prof. Wally, how abundant is this renewable energy resource, itong offshore wind na to?
Well, yung offshore wind natin talagang malaki ang resource natin. In fact, yung study ng Department of Energy, pinapakita niyan, kayang supplyan nga ng offshore wind ang buong Pilipinas kahit wala ang ibang planta. I mean, technically or theoretically speaking, ganun kung i-describe yung resource availability. So, marami, no? Of course, dahil nga ito ay offshore, so merong challenges, ano? So, but by the way, yung advantage ng offshore versus onshore, yung mas maraming kuryenteng kayang i-produce for the same capacity. So, in fact, like for example, the typical onshore, yung mga nasa bundok malapit sa dagat na onshore, ay magpo-produce yan up to perhaps mga 30% ng kanyang utility ng kanyang capacity or effectively 30% ang kaya niyang i-produce.
Dahil ba mas malakas yung hangin pag nasa dagat?
Yes. Oo. Okay. Hindi lang malakas, constant, continuous.
Yun naman talaga sa wind Hindi kailangan yung sobrang lakas, di ba? Basta consistent.
So yun yung
Pero ang challenges niyan would be...
Well, challenges dahil masyado siyang malayo, then ibig sabihin, and the most expensive network infra actually is submarine. In fact, yung ating transmission development ng bansa natin, ang difficulty natin ay paano interconnect yung islands. And imagine, we are doing the same thing in offshore. We are interconnecting using submarine cable, which are expensive. So yun yung primary hurdle.
So yun, infrastructure. So let me go to Atoy, no? So Atoy, how ready are we in terms of supply chain construction and the like? So transmission constraints, readiness of port facilities, variability and intermittency or the occurrence of doldrums.
Una muna in terms of submarine cables na binanggit nga ni Wally, available naman yan sa mga manufacturers except that wala dito sa Pilipinas, but yung mga foreign manufacturers can easily supply yung requirement for submarine cables. Now, pagdating naman doon sa port facilities, very important kasi yan na ma-identify kasi yung mga mahahaba na wind turbines, yung yung blades nila, hindi pwedeng i-transport sa inland. Kaya talagang ang pag-deliver niyan is through the ports, no? And ang Department of Energy naman in coordination with PNOC and other port developers are closely coordinating with each other to ensure na available yung ports pag-start ng construction ng ating mga offshore wind facilities. In terms naman of availability ng capacity ng transmission grid, in fact, I have asked my staff to coordinate closely with the Renewable Energy Management Bureau to identify sino ba ang mga frontrunners. And from there, i-evaluate namin yung existing transmission facilities kaya bang i-absorb itong mga capacity na ito na banggit nga ni Prof. Wally na malalaki ito, ang total nito ay gigawatts. No? So we're making sure that capacity of the transmission network is available pagpasok nito mga offshore winds na ito.
Mahabang preparation yan because the challenge is cost. Diba? Yung infrastructure nga, yung mga ports, paano natin i-prepare yun? And then, offshore wind, diba? Iko-connect mo yun, papunta dun kung nasan yung wind turbines na yan. Ang issue natin is meron pa rin tayong mga transmission na, let's say, from Batangas to Mindoro to interconnect that has always been in the transmission development plan. Pero ang tagal bago nangyari. So, how can we ensure...
Hindi pa
nangyari, di ba? So, how can we ensure that this does not happen to offshore wind?
Actually, kaya nandyan yung ERC kasi, ang isang nire-reason ng NGCP, kaya matagal bago naumpisahan yung project is the approval. To the point na kailangan pang i-upgrade yung requirement kasi from 230 kilovolts na voltahe, kailangang taasan siya to 500 kilovolts kasi nga para yung capacity ng offshore wind sa south of Mindoro mai-transport papunta sa Luzon considering that ito ay nasa 3,300 megawatts. So yun ang mga issue kasi na challenges na dapat ma-address is yung timely approval din ng ERC. At kapag ka naman na-delay yung project base doon sa kanilang projected timeline, kailangan ding i-enhance na yung penalties for delayed projects. No? Kasama yan sa tinitingnan sa restructuring ng amendment ng EPIRA para nga palakasin ng ERC, lalo na sa pag-penalize sa mga transmission delayed projects.
Okay. So, Prof. Wally, are there social or cultural acceptability issues we should mind? May problema ba to sa acceptability, yung offshore wind?
Oo, meron. Kasi actually, yung mga fishermen natin, siyempre hindi mo naman pwedeng i-assume na naintindihan nila yung technology. Anything na ilalagay mo dyan na massive, natatakot sila kasi yung pangingisda nila, pwedeng maisip nila na, baka mawala na yung mga isda na aming normal na pinupuntahan.
So, public consultations,
yeah,
di ba?
importante
Para
yan.
explain.
Oo.
Ano pa, Yusek May? Meron ka pa bang nakikitang na possible rejections of offshore wind sa mga...
Ang strategy ng Department of Energy together with the offshore wind developers is to engage all affected stakeholders. In-explain yan in laymanized na mas makakabuti kung may offshore wind. Kasi in other countries, in other jurisdiction, makikita mo nagiging parang house siya ng mga marine life dun sa turbina or sa foundation. So instead na affected or nababawasan yung marine resources natin, dumadami siya kasi parang binabahayan yung mga kwan.
So, yeah, kasi parang ako,
Yes.
I'm a diver. So, pag nakakita ako ng yung mga lumubog na mga barko or something, binabahayan siya. So, ganun din ba yun?
Ganun din yun. Plus, syempre, yung ating mga developers are mandated, no? Dapat meron talagang feasibility study, no? Ipaintindi sa mga, even sa kanila, dapat i-mitigate nila kung ano mang meron gagawin doon sa
para
area.
hindi ma-harm
no?
yung kalikasan.
Oo, tama.
So, ito, ang tanong ng bawat consumer, how high is the upfront investment and is the increase in electricity bill of Filipinos inevitable? Tataas pa ang presyo ng kuryente ko pag gumamit tayo ng offshore wind.
Well, by technology, talaga medyo mas mahal siya, no, compared with solar, onshore wind. Pero ang kagandahan nga, nasabi kanina ni Prof. Wally, na mas marami ang napoproduce. And as an archipelagic country, marami tayong potential. In fact, there is a possibility na magkaroon tayo ng agreement with other ASEAN neighbors for that particular offshore wind project. Kasi remember, ang potential na na-issue namin na service contract is about 66 gigawatt. Ang demand natin nasa 20 gigawatt lang. So kung matuloy lahat ng project na to, ibig sabihin meron tayong pwedeng cross-border exchange, no, with other ASEAN like Singapore, yung Taiwan syempre is interested also in having, and then we have tinatawag natin na ASEAN Power Grid, no, eventually.
Which is interesting, right? Because the Philippines is hosting the ASEAN next year. Ano yung, meron na ba kayong mga recommendations na pwede nating gawin, na concrete, na pwedeng mangyari as a collaboration on, let's say, offshore wind? Ito yung cross-border cooperation na sinasabi natin.
Actually, na set up na, no, or na design na ng Department of Energy, and syempre I don't want to preempt whatever programs that the government or the DOE will be doing as chair, no, nung sa ASEAN, ano. But one good thing is there is a motion to review yung ASEAN Power Grid kasi ang tagal-tagal na nun eh, at ang Pilipinas nasa tail end tayo, parang ang layo-layo natin doon. But there are now talks like sa yung tinatawag natin na Borneo, Indonesia, Malaysia, and Philippines, no?
Okay.
So inaaral 'yan kung paano. Plus magkakaroon tayo ng tinatawag na cross-border renewable energy transaction. Kasi it's an in thing ngayon, yung mga part ng compliance with the clean energy is yung tinatawag natin renewable energy certificate. So, similar to yung mga nauna nating mga technology na mahal, no, kanina sabi ko, ang solar is umabot ng 16 pesos per kilowatt hour yan. So, bumaba siya eventually. And ito naman, ang maganda is purely private sector. So, kung nakikita mo na interesado yung private sector or yung investor mismo na i-pursue in close coordination with DOE, syempre, isusuportahan natin yan. And we have several agreements, ongoing talks with Philippine Ports Authority and other private ports owner to support yung offshore wind, no?
Okay. So, similar to the growth trajectory of solar power, there are energy sector analysts who recommend that we wait another 5 to 10 years before offshore wind is adopted to reduce the risk and cost associated with early adoption. Yun na nga eh, parang mahal pa ba? So for Engineer Atoy, what lessons can we learn from solar power growth? Case in point, the cost of solar PV modules declined up to 90% since 2010. So to allow offshore wind technology to meet the criteria of our country's ambition of a reliable, affordable, and sustainable energy future, do you agree with that?
Well, yung technology kasi mabilis ang development niyan. At the same time, yung cost din ng production ng mga required equipment to construct offshore wind, mabilis din siyang bumaba. At kung hihintayin mo pa yung 5 to 10 years, we are losing the opportunity of using renewable power from offshore wind, which is technically libre kasi yung energy produced ng wind power coming from offshore wind, except that mataas nga, as mentioned by Yusek May, mataas yung capital cost niya.
Energy technologies such as wind and solar come with their respective pros and cons. Understanding this prepares us to make the data-driven choices in our country's energy investments. What are the other hurdles we as a country need to face as we transition to clean energy, and what solutions can we take or consider? So let's talk about it in our final episode coming soon. Again, I'm Ruthie Owen, and thank you for joining us again for Powering Up, future-proofing the Philippine energy mix. We'll see you in our last episode.